Sunday, February the 15th. This is Coffee with Frankie. This is the coffee. I'm the Frankie. I love a little coffee in the morning. Hank G is here. Good morning, coffee crew. Phil the Jet Adams is here. Ike Karate is here. Let me know if you can see and hear me okay in the chat. Everything looks okay on my end. We got the doc up here. Mr. Net Warriors here. Karate says you have echo. Echo. Now, why would that be the case? Confirm echo. No, might be on your end, Karate. Let me know if there's any kind of an echo. There should not be. No real reason for that. Bryant is here. So let me know if there's an echo. We definitely don't want that. And if so, that might end the broadcast. Because there's no real reason for it. Okay, Brian says sounds good. Hank G says no echo. It might be your end over there, Karate. Maybe you got an echo. You ever think of that? You ever think of that? You ever think of that? Maybe you got an echo, buddy. Maybe you got the echo. Now, what is going on? Phil says no echo. Joe Mike also here, the copy pasta man. No echo on his end. All right. Now, what you'll notice with the Jet Beat reporters, I think that they're on vacation because they're not really tweeting anything. It's a very quiet time in the NFL, a very quiet time in Jetland. And so we're not getting a lot of news. We're not getting up a lot of news. That Warrior says volume up a bit. Not getting a lot of news. And, basically the last teams are filling out their coaching units. So the Browns are trying to hire a defensive coordinator. That could come today or tomorrow. Other teams are filling out their people. The Jets just put something out about John Abraham finished his degree. Congrats, John Abraham. Okay, good job, Abe. But that's really not, exciting Jet news. Good news for John Abraham and his family, I guess, but James Thompson's here. So I guess there's not really a lot of news to talk about. It's quiet times. So I don't know, maybe I'll just leave it up to the chat. What do you guys want to talk about? Doesn't have to be Jet related. I did have sort of a revelation about the quarterback situation. Maybe we could talk about that. But it's not that big of a revelation. There's only so many options that we got there. But even at the college level, there's really nothing going on. There's some coaches being hired. There's some court cases being decided, whether it's Trinidad Chambliss, Joey Aguilar. The rev share cap grows next year from 20.5 to 21.3. It's just not a lot going on. And basketball really doesn't fill the void because a lot of people are talking about this All-Star game they had, and they're very disappointed. And that's a low bar to be disappointed from. All these All-Star things are kind of hanky anyways. And now they're saying the NBA All-Star game is as bad as it's ever been. So there's just nothing to fill the void, really. That's why all these spring football leagues are trying to do, but they don't fill the void either. My opinion. Phil says, let's hear that. Joe Mike, did FSPN report breaking news about the New York Jets hire of UF facility? Yes. Yes, Joe Mike, we did. In fact, you're trying to kid me, but we actually did, buddy. We broke it. In fact, I was the first to report it. If you want to know the truth, Frankie was the first to report it. I reported it on Twitter, so x.com. But yeah, I broke the story. In fact, actually, they're not even kidding. I did. Go back to my X account. And all of you should be following me on X. I don't understand why you're not, but I do good work on X. Yes, I broke the news. FSPN broke the news. Let's hear about the quarterbacks. Shame what happened to the dunk contest. Mr. Warrior, I mentioned on Jets Nation message board. Boy, that's a strange place to be. Boss Girl 8 is here. Makes you wonder what happened to all the Boss Girls 1 through 7. But that's another story. Brian is here. I know I don't want Kirk Cousins to call me petty, but he did what he did, so no to him. You're wrong, Brian. So, like, using the Jets and then getting a better offer or, a more preferred offer for the Vikings, how can you blame him? He wanted to go to the Vikings, so what? If he wants to come here now, you're going to cut off your nose to spite your face? That's pretty stupid. He wanted to go to the Vikings. If I were him, I'd probably want to go to Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson too. What's the big deal? He preferred another destination. Oh, well, now it's a different situation, and he might prefer us, and we should feel lucky if he does. But here's the way it goes with the quarterbacks, in my opinion. Joe says, Frankie's always on my Twitter feed. Yeah, and I hope you get some value out of it, JoJo, because I do try to put out good stuff, whether it's funny, whether it's informative, whether it's breaking news with our new executive level analytics and AI guy that I did break. I really did break that news. I got it from LinkedIn. I got it directly from him. I was on LinkedIn. I saw he posted it himself, and then I broke the news. I guess he broke his own news technically, but with the quarterbacks, the way I see it, and I guess Bryant isn't going to be too happy about this, but we got basically two levels. First level is Carr and Cousins. That's the levels. If you go Carr and Cousins 1 or 2, which maybe they both don't want to be here, that's fine, but those are the two you go after. Carr first and then Cousins. You see if they want to play for us. Not everybody wants to play for Woody Johnson. It's just the way it is. I don't blame them. But if we get one of them, then that is our starter for 2 years. And basically, we're not taking a quarterback this year, a young quarterback in the draft. We might take a flyer on somebody in the 7th round, something like that. But we're not taking a significant quarterback this year, which is good news. Because then it means at least 3 and maybe 4 of those first 4 draft picks are on defense, depending on if we get a wide receiver that we like in the free agency period. So, all right, but what if they don't want to come here? Cousins doesn't want to come here again. Carr is like, no, thank you. You're not close to contention. I can't sell him. I think I could sell him if I could just talk to the man. I think I could sell him on the plan, but maybe he doesn't buy it. No matter how good of a salesman you are, sometimes the client just doesn't want to buy. So he's like, nope, I'm staying retired. No good. Kirk Cousins is like, I want to go somewhere else. I don't know where Kirk Cousins is going to go. That's the other part of this one. What, is he going to go back to Minnesota and be a backup? He doesn't want to be a backup. That was his whole gripe with Michael Penix and the Falcons that he tried to get out of. So I think he wants to start. There's only a few places where he's a guaranteed starter. We're one of them. Another one would be the Steelers, but they're looking like they're going to sign Rodgers. So that's the difference this time as to last time with Kirk Cousins. So, but let's say he doesn't want to come or whatever the reason. All right, what's the next level? Well, the next level is Willis and Mariota. And I think at the very bare minimum, we're going to get Mariota. That's the worst case scenario, but it does have a chance to work. I'm higher on Mariota than most. But if we get Willis or Mariota, then I think, because the same promises cannot be made to them. They don't have the track record that Carr and Cousins do. So you can't promise them the same kind of like a 2-year starting runway for them. So in other words, if that happens, and also because Glenn and Muji need a plan to sell to Woody, then what happens is the number 2 pick is almost certainly going to be Ty Simpson. You might not like it. You may not love it. I'm just telling you what's going to happen. And the reason is because you tell Woody we got 2 shots at the apple this year and going forward. And this is Glenn and Muji have to save their jobs also. We got to think about that. And so they go, all right, well, Willis, we like him. We love him. We're going to put him out there. Let's say we sign him. But the guy only has 6 games started his whole life, including only one last year. He looked good in Green Bay all the times he played, but it's a very limited sample size. So we don't know. We're hoping, and if he continues on and he becomes a franchise guy, fine. We'll deal with Ty Simpson later. Doesn't matter. It's always good to have a good backup anyways. But it's, but we don't know. There's not enough of a track record there for us to be solid on Willis or Mariota for that matter. So we got to have Ty Simpson in the back pocket, because if it's 8 or 10 games in and it's looking bad, then you got to go, all right, don't worry, Woody, don't freak out, don't panic. We still got this Ty Simpson. We'll put him in there for the end of the season, and no matter whatever happens with Ty Simpson happens, as long as it's not a total disaster, then we'll go into next year with Ty Simpson as a starter. So keep us around, Woody, right? And then if that's the case, that's what's going to happen. So because you can't wait. In other words, you need to make sure you get Ty Simpson. The only way to make sure you get him is to take him at 2, because he could go in any number of places if you try to wait till 16, which would be the preference, but he might be gone. So then 16, 33, 44, and probably the rest of the picks all go to defense in that scenario. So I think that's really what it is. The worst case scenario that we were looking at this year is Mariota and Simpson as the quarterbacks. Is that a good situation? Nope. It's not. But I think you can only do what you can do. There's just not a lot of good options. And at least this way, you got a shot with a veteran. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Remember, Mariota's only 32 years old. It could work with him. He's fairly young. Maybe it does. It's less of a chance. And then Malik Willis, he's going into his magical age 27 season. As we know, we have the Frankie age 27 theory. Maybe it works out with him, and that'd be great. And if it does, we sign him long-term and just roll with that. Okay. Then maybe you could trade Ty Simpson. You could do whatever you want, or keep him as a backup. Doesn't matter. But considering how important that position is, I think that's the way it's going to go. Either you get Carr or Cousins as a full-time starter for at least 2 years. In Carr's case, maybe 3 or 4 even. Or you go with the uncertain options of Willis or Mariota. They get to start, and then you back them up with Simpson. And that's the way we roll. So I think that's the way it's going to go. So the worst case scenario is Mariota Simpson, which isn't, it's not good, but it's not terrible either. It could work. Who knows? Maybe it will work. But I also have this sort of feeling of would Frank Reich come here thinking, all right, it's going to be Mariota? There's also got to be some kind of way that Frank Reich knew who the quarterback's going to be and was comfortable with it, and it's not Mariota. So I don't know. That's the other side of this. Maybe Frank Reich just said, I'll make it work with any quarterback, but I really doubt he said that. So anyway, that's my current thinking. Subject to be updated as more information comes in. But that's the way it is. B-Trav wants me to start watching hockey. No, thank you. Hockey is boring as hell. And yes, I played hockey, and yes, I've gone to a game of hockey. Hockey is boring, just like soccer. Joe Mike says, we made it to the offseason, where the Jets always win, dominate the news, lead the fans. Indeed. Seems it's good in AZ. Oh, they're talking about the weather. So JoJo said, look, JoJo's telling you about the value of my X account. There's comedic value there. I'm dunking on these people left, right, and center for you people, and you're not even appreciating it. JoJo is. JoJo's a Frankie appreciator. And why not get a chuckle out of your day? You probably could use a little levity. You probably could use a little comedy. You're probably running through your life miserable existence. You got to fight through the wind and the cold and the snow and the rain. Oh, it's so terrible. And you're looking for something. You look at your phone. It's nothing but garbage. But then you look at your X account and there's Frankie and he's got a joke and it's funny as hell. And you get a little smile on your face. How about that? How about that? And JoJo is confirming. Jets need to follow the Seahawks model with hits on your first, second, record, easy, boo, boo. Yeah, everybody has to hit on their draft picks, Joe. JoJo, I don't get all the Carr hate on the internet. We would be lucky to get Carr or Cousins. Hey, there's a logical take. Yeah, that's the way I see it. They're 1 and 2. Hopefully we get one. But, that would be the easiest. If you get Carr, now you have a guy for 3-4 years, right? Hopefully. You never know. The plan would be, all right, we have this guy for at least 2 and probably 3 years. And in the meantime, and let's say we sign Romeo Doubs or Wan'Dale Robinson. We go crazy with the nut. We just pay more than anybody. We really want Romeo Doubs. We give him $18 million or something. Can't say no to that, can you, Romy? Well, maybe he can. I don't know. But let's say he accepts $18 million. He doesn't deserve it, but we need wide receiver very badly. And the idea there would be, all right, then we don't need a wide receiver in the draft. We have to load up this defense with talent and get 4 blue chippers this year and 3 more next year to make it any good. Hopefully it improves this year with the 4 blue chippers plus any free agents we sign and get it to at least, move it up from the worst in the world to something decent and then add 3 more blue chippers next year in the first round. Plus we still have our second round. That's 4 more blue chippers, hopefully. And that would be the plan. Stabilize the quarterback position with somebody who's okay, and he's okay, he's functional, and then set out about building your team. Think about it. Sam Darnold just won a Super Bowl after leading the league in turnovers, which was his bugaboo this whole life, going back all the way to college. He's still doing it, except he's got a really good team around him, and they overcome those turnovers, and he didn't turn the ball over in the playoffs, which was kind of weird, but, played well at the right time, played his best at the right time, which is cool. But really, that team was just stacked to the max. And if you think about it, it wasn't just Sam Darnold. Their whole philosophy was, let's not use premium picks on quarterbacks. Going all the way back, they signed Matt Flynn. Then he lost his job to Russell Wilson, a 3rd-round pick. They had him for a long period of time. Then when they were done with him, traded him for a boatload of picks and had Geno as a backup. Geno came in for a few years, did a decent job with them. They continued to win, not a Super Bowl contender, but they did okay. And then they were done with him, get a pick for him, and sign Sam Darnold. And now the team, through all of those great draft picks that they made, is really stacked and loaded. And Darnold doesn't have to do as much. And even with all of his league-leading turnover problems, they still went all the way to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl. So stabilize the position. That's a thing we haven't been able to do. That's why if I were the Jets, I would make a full court press on Derek Carr. I would sell him on, I'm telling you, Derek, with you at quarterback, we can be a playoff team next year, and I would explain how that's going to happen. It's very easy to explain. We're going to add tons of blue chip talent to defense, and with a quarterback in place, that's a thing that's been missing for the last decade with the Jets. We look at our running game last year without a quarterback in place. Now put you there. Teams have to respect the gunslinger, Derek Carr, which he really is. He throws a lot of deep passes. I've been watching his games from 2024. He's not a dink and dunker. He really is not. He throws a ton of bombs. You think Garrett Wilson would like a bomb or two? How about A.D. Mitchell? How about even an Arian Smith? Pure speed guy. He could use him because he can actually get him the ball. That's what he was doing with Rashid Shaheed with the Saints in 24. And Chris Olave. So there's the offense. We have all these weapons. We can get more. Nobody has more resources, by the way, than the Jets this year. I hope you know. When you combine cap space plus the draft capital we have, when you combine those two things, nobody has more resources than the Jets. No one. So number one, we can pay you a good amount. You don't have to take a cheapo deal. Number two, you got a straight line to the starting. You don't have anybody clipping at your heels to start here. So you're the starter. You're the man. You're back in charge. No problem. We got nothing, nobody else to challenge. Brady Cook ain't challenging you. Trust us. So there's that. And then look at all the weapons we already have on offense and how the running offense did good last year without a quarterback and without Garrett Wilson. So how much better will it be with Garrett Wilson and a quarterback who knows what he's doing? There's that. And what about the defense? It was terrible. Yeah, we're going to load it up with blue chip talent is what we're going to do. And Aaron Glenn's going to call the defense now. Aaron Glenn, a good defensive coordinator? Yes. Despite what racist country club Connor Hughes will tell you, Aaron Glenn is known by everybody who knows football as a very good defensive coordinator. Not known as a good head coach yet, obviously. But he is known to be a good defensive coordinator. Everybody knows that. Who isn't a racist and trying to get a guy fired like country club Connor is. But so there you go. That's how we're going to improve the defense. We're going to load it up with blue chip talent. We have the picks. We have the money. We're going to do it. And our special teams is already top notch with Chris Banjo, who I think Carr probably knows maybe from New Orleans days. Maybe. Nah, who knows? But who cares? It doesn't matter. Special teams, we saw what they can do. They're amazing. So where is Derek Carr going to get a better situation than that? Arizona? I mean, maybe you could argue the Steelers, but they're gonna sign Rodgers. It looks like 99% chance. Caboli says. So where else is he gonna go? Miami? Miami has no money and no draft picks, no extra draft picks. They have no money. They have cap problems up the wazoo for the next 2 years. They're gonna be working their way out of it. That's not a good place. They have Jalen Waddle and Devin Achane, but that's all they have. Who else do they have? They got a good linebacker, Brooks. That's it. Zach Sealer? What? Minka Fitzpatrick? They got no defense. They just lost their highly regarded defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver. So now they got Hafley. Who knows what Hafley's going to be? And defensive-minded head coach. We don't know what kind of a head coach he's going to be. So you got Hafley. You got Tua there, and even if you get rid of Tua, you got Tua's stink of dead cap that you're going to have 67 and 31 or take it all 99 in 1 year. That's kind of crazy. So Miami doesn't look like a good spot. Where's he going to go that's better than us? Nowhere. You want to go to Las Vegas? All right, then they're not taking Mendoza if they do that. I don't think they're going to do that. Seems like they're really hot on Mendoza. So where's the landing spot for Carr? Well, then he'll just stay retired, Frankie. Well, all right. I mean, I think I make a pretty good case. I think I do. No, we got a bunch of comments. Boss girl. I think Hughes reported we will be aggressive in free agency. Duh. But how would you attack free agency? 100 million can actually go fast. Yeah, well, I already addressed this, boss girl. We're going to have basically 3 priority free agents. 3. That's not a ton. All we need is the quarterback, obviously. I just made the case for Carr. That's going to cost us, what, 25, 30, 40? So that's going to eat up a bunch, you're right. But then we go after Alex Anzalone very hard. That's only going to cost us 10, and even that's a reach. 10, 11. So there's, what, 40 used? And then we're going to go after Romeo Doubs, Romy the homie. They're projecting a $12 million. We go all the way up to 17. All right. We get Romy the homie. Now what you have is basically a complete, and Hall and AVT. So Hall's going to cost 11. AVT's going to cost, hopefully, 10. Then you're basically done, though. I mean, add all that up. I mean, we still have way more money, and plus we can create more cap anytime we want to with Garrett Wilson's contract and Jamie Sherwood's contract. So we got plenty of money to sign. That's all we need. Those are our priority free agents right there. Quarterback, Anzalone, Romy the homie, Hall, and AVT. And if AVT says, no, I want to go back to Cal, okay, then you get Johnny Simpson for less. Simpson will cost you 7. And that's not good. And then maybe we go after Linderbaum. There's some reports out there that the Ravens are thinking about replacing Linderbaum with some other guy. Maybe he's too rich for their blood. All right, well, maybe he'll go to the Giants. All right, maybe, but they may not value the center that highly. We could go after Linderbaum. If we lose out on AVT, maybe we'll go after Linderbaum for 20. It's a lot for a center, but if you're going to have John Simpson there, maybe instead of AVT, who's, much higher quality, then go after Linderbaum and improve that position. And all of that done, and we still have all the money, and we still have plenty of money to get, backups and minor guys, Malcolm Rodriguez for $2 million, little Amik Robertson for $8 million, We got plenty of money. There's nothing we can't do. Put it that way. But those are the priority free agents: is Hall, AVT, Anzalone, quarterback, and Romy the homie. That's it. That's the plan, in my opinion. Now, if we strike out on those guys, then you just go down your list. If we strike out on Romy the homie, then can we get Wan'Dale Robinson? No. All right. Go down the list. If we can't get anybody, then the 16th pick is going to be a wide receiver. It was that simple. But that's it. We have all the money for everything we want to do, including a quarterback, which is usually your highest price item. How much is Carr want? That's the other thing. We could pay Carr $35 million a year if he wants, guaranteed for 2 or 3 years. So basically, it's $100 million. Maybe not all of that's guaranteed. Maybe it's a $135 million contract, but 100's guaranteed. Derek Carr want to turn down $100 million guaranteed? I mean, yeah, he wants to play for a winner, but is that negotiating? I put out on my X account that's just a negotiation tactic, because the reality is we can give him a 3-year deal worth, or a 4-year deal worth 135 with 100 guaranteed, something like that, 140. And so he's got $100 million guaranteed. He's going to turn his back on $100 million. I mean, I know people hate Woody, but it's $100 million fucking dollars. That's a lot of fucking money. I mean, I know Dante Moore turned his nose up at 50, but I think he made a bad choice, to be honest with you. I don't know how he did that, but still, point being, Derek Carr's not going to have a lot of opportunities to make $100 million left in his life at this point. Are you going to be a broadcaster, a podcaster? How much are you making in a stupid little podcast? And he could always go back to podcasting after he brings a world championship to the New York Jets. How much bigger of a podcast would you have if you're Super Bowl champion Derek Carr bringing the Jets from the doldrums to the top of the mountain? I mean, think of the story. I mean, we really aren't that far away, It's so crazy to me. Just a few things have to go right for us this year. I mean, the whole 10 years of futility thing, 15 if you want to say, go back to the Rex era. It's all because we didn't have a quarterback. That's really the root cause of it. The 1 year we had a quarterback, Fitzpatrick, when he was Fitzmagic instead of Fitztragic, we just missed. And we had a good offensive year. We just missed the playoffs, lost that last game. And then he turned into Fitztragic the next year, which is what happens with him. And then from then on, we just couldn't get the quarterback right. Sammy D was 39 interceptions in 3 years, plus all the fumbles. I mean, and then we decided to go with Zach and trade Sammy D, and then that didn't work, and then we wanted Rodgers, and Rodgers got injured. Oy. But the root cause of all this, you could blame Woody all you want. You could blame Jaime El High. You could blame Joe Douglas. You could blame anybody in the world. You could blame the Namath curse. We haven't been able to acquire a quarterback. There's the same problem that the Chicago Bears have had for the last 100 fucking years. It happens. These people are hard to find, which is why we should really make a play for Derek Carr, because he's a functional quarterback, and those kind of people are hard to find. And he's really going to turn down $100 million? We got guys. I mean, We got guys that are basically the same as what he had with the Saints. I'm watching his 2024 season, and I'm going, okay, Olave is Garrett Wilson. Okay, Rashid Shaheed is Arian Smith, essentially. We got better tight ends than they got on that team. We don't have a Taysom Hill. That guy's a little unusual, but we got running back. All right, we don't have an Alvin Kamara, but we probably will have Breece Hall. He's almost as good. I mean, we got it. They don't even have an A.D. Mitchell equivalent. Who's their A.D. Mitchell? They don't have it. So, and he was having a lot of fun early in that year. So far, gotten through, I think, 5 or 6 games. Remember, the first 2 games of that year, they threw up 91 points. 9-1. 91 in 2 games. That's like 10 games worth for the Jets. 91 points, ladies and gentlemen. We've never seen anything like this. Not anytime recently. So, I mean, I don't know. The way I see it, I just don't think he has that many options, and I think we're a good option, and all we got to do is sell him on it. Get Gary V, the great salesman, to sell Derek Carr on that. Jojo says, I can see Ty Simpson at 2. Yeah, exactly. Brian says, I would rather go Carr. I believe he would come into this team with something to prove. Well, I don't know about that, but what he is a good quarterback, so that's all we need. Fannin, well, what's it? Oh, this is to Joe Mike. What should we give to get Carr? Oh, you mean in a trade? Well, I don't know, 7th round pick, 6th round pick. They can't get too cute. He already gave them back $30 million. So hopefully they're not going to try to hold this up like Gutekunst did. But hopefully it's just something minor, I would think. Because Carr could say, I mean, they could either take something from us or nothing. I mean, Carr could say Carr has full no trade clause, and number 1. And number 2, he could always say, I'll stay retired and you get nothing, New Orleans. So might as well take a 7th round pick or a 6th round pick. Right? I mean, it's better than nothing. So hopefully it's not the same as the Gutekunst negotiations. Joe Mike, no Jets media reporter is safe from Frankie from Flatbush on Twitter. No one does it better than Frankie. All right, Joe. Appreciate that. Yeah, when these guys try to do their spin, I try to unspin it. Or when they get things wrong, I say, no, this is wrong. So, a guy like Rub It In Rich Cimini tried to explain the difference of a 3-4 and a 4-3 defense and how the Jets were actually in 3-4 a lot last year. They were not. And I had to tell him, no, this is actually incorrect. Now, Rub It In Rich Cimini does not care about his comments, whereas Connor Hughes actually does. Zach Rosenblatt does a little bit. Rub It In Rich will never pay attention to his to people like quote tweeting him or commenting on his posts. He's not going to respond. He's been covering the team for 37 years. He doesn't care really about your comments. But he was totally wrong, for example, and I had to point it out, and I hope more people will follow me so they don't get misinformation. Because what he was trying to say is that, which is completely stupid, when Jermaine Johnson is in a 2-point stance, he counts as a linebacker. What? It's like, no, dummy. The reason he counts as a linebacker is because he switched his number to 11, if you remember that. Remember when he switched his number to 11? Well, to do that, you have to technically be designated as a linebacker in all of the NFL data systems. So technically, we're always in a 3-4 when Jermaine Johnson is on the field, regardless of 2-point stance or 3-point stance, or 4-point stance for that matter. It's because he's a linebacker in all of the data systems that the NFL uses because he's technically a linebacker. But as we all know, he doesn't do any linebacker stuff. He's a defensive lineman. So all of the data sets, data systems, whether it's Next Gen Stats or NFL Fast R, by the way, anybody who's working in data should know how to work in R. If they're not, you should question their findings, like Nania, for example. But all of those systems have Jermaine Johnson as a linebacker for that reason, and I had to explain that to him and to anybody who was paying attention because that's a very important thing. But Samini got it wrong. And it's kind of wild that somebody who works for ESPN and is supposed to be in the know and has been watching football for 40 fucking years, you would think something elemental like that, which is just elemental, would be understood by somebody who's supposed to be a football beat writer. Not with Rub It In Rich. He likes to rub it in. He likes to rub it in. He's a rub-it-inster. Very strange, but I straightened him out. But the problem is I only have, let's look at it, 279. Frankie from Flatbush has 279 followers. So people don't really take me seriously when you have 279 followers. People just look at the followers and they go, well, is this guy a trusted voice? Oh, 279 followers? Nope, he's an idiot. So, I don't know. I'll keep trying to pump out good content on here. Maybe I could grow it. Because I really would like people to, straightening things out like that is kind of important, I think. Oh, let's see what Mary Kay says about Malik Willis in free agency. So the other thing is there's no columns up. Rub It In Rich. Nobody has a column up this morning like they normally do. But guess who does have a column up? One of the good beat reporters, Mary Kay Cabot of the Browns. And it's titled, Will the Browns Pursue Packers Backup Quarterback Malik Willis in Free Agency? So let's see what she has to say. Let's see if she mentions the agents. It's the question. Oh, no, hang on a second. Put this over here. Because this is number 3 on my list, if you remember, is Malik Willis as a possibility. Goes Carr, Cousins, Willis. She says, I believe the Browns will do their diligence on Willis, just like they will for any quality veteran quarterback coming available this offseason. They have already stated that they'll scour the market for the best quarterbacks in their bid to field the best one possible in 26. Willis was a quarterback I really liked when I studied him at the Senior Bowl in 2022 and talked to him there. Well, everybody likes him. He's a very nice young man. He seemed to have the arm talent and mobility to become a quality NFL starter. Yes, of course. The Browns traded that pick. Willis is the dual threat. However, he'll be in demand in free agency with a scarcity of good quarterbacks and the price will be high. Aha! See, here we go. This just confirms my opinion. Mary Kay Cabot is an excellent beat reporter, and we should point out the good ones. Here's the next sentence. He's also represented by Watson's agent, David Mulligetta, who might not want to pit them against each other. Boom. Excellent sentence. Let's give a golf clap. Nice job, Mary Kay. Atta girl. Atta girl. You would be surprised by the number of people who comment on these types of things who don't take that into consideration. I've been talking about that for the last few months, if you remember. But it's good to see Mary Kay, someone in the mainstream and a good reporter, and that just confirms my opinion. She's one of my favorites. She's one of the best out there. Let's give another golf clap. All right, Mary Kay. Way to go. Let's get Mary Kay Cabot to cover the Jets. How about that? Replace Zach Rosenblather, who's not a football fan. He's represented. The Dolphins will likely have a strong chance to land him now that former Packers Jeff Hafley is a Miami head coach. Blah. Right. So she nails it. So this is exactly correct. Does David Mulligetta really want to block Deshaun Watson's chance to return to glory, as they both would want him to do? I don't see it. What David Mulligetta and Athletes First want to do is they want to have Tua go back to his couple of years ago when he led the league in passing with the Dolphins. Not likely, but that's what they want. And they want Deshaun Watson to go back to his former glory, what he was with the Texans, where he led the league in passing one year, so that they can both get new contracts, new huge contracts. And then they want to take Malik Willis and put him in a place where he's not blocking an Athletes First client and have him have a great year so he can have a giant contract as well. So that's why I think he's not going to go to Miami or Minnesota or Cleveland. So I would make the same pitch to Malik Willis as these other guys. It's the same pitch. The Jets is the place for you. We got nobody blocking you and nobody you'll be blocking from the Mulligetta point of view. We have all these assets, all the arguments I made for Carr and Cousins. If they don't want to come, you make the same arguments to Malik Willis and David Mulugeta. This is the place for you. And if it's not, if it doesn't work out, you can always blame the Jets. Well, wait a minute. We had a bad year. Let's say we sign him to a 2-year deal, but the first year is guaranteed, and then he has a bad year, we cut him. Now he's on the free agent market again. Well, you can always make the case to other teams that, hey, it was the Jets. What do you expect? You could just blame the Jets. Wasn't my client. He's actually really good. So I think, it's the same deal. We have the best situation for these people. We have the most money and the most draft capital when you combine those two things. Plus, you have you can be a starter. There's no blocking going on. So, but let's give another golf clap to Mary Kay Cabot. Good job. Good job, Mary Kay. Good job, buddy. The rest of this column is not really pertaining to Jets interests. But good job by Mary Kay Cabot. One of the best. Oh, now we have a column from Rich Samini. All right, rub it in, Rich. He says, the process was clunky at times. The end result was a significant shift in philosophy by Aaron Glenn and an increase in this staff's experience level. More. Inside Coach Aaron Glenn's staff overhaul. Let's see what Rub It In Rich has to say here. New York Jets coaching staff overhaul, much like some of their 2-minute drills last season. There's Rub It In Rich. Why has he got to rub it in? Well, just ask yourself that. He's a beat reporter. Why is he rubbing it in? Started slowly and appeared out of sync at times. The most important takeaways, though, are how Coach Aaron Glenn made a significant shift in managerial philosophy and raised the experience level of his staff. After a season as a CEO-type coach, delegating most of his responsibilities to his coordinators, Glenn will be hands-on in 26, which is a potential make-or-break year for him. True. He's expected to call the defense, which he did with the Lions. His new coordinator, Brian Dukes of Hazzard Duker, will handle all other responsibilities. I added in the Dukes of Hazzard part. This was one component in Glenn's plan to change the way the Jets do business. Business wasn't good in 2025. The Jets tied for the worst record in the NFL, with Glenn admitting after the season his learning curve as a first-year head coach was a huge deal. Evidently, one of his mistakes was the composition of his coaching staff, which he has now dismantled. 12 of the 22 coaches on his initial staff are gone, including defensive coordinator Steve Wilkes and offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrand, an unusually high turnover for 1 year. Glenn cut loose some of his most inexperienced assistants and hired former players turned longtime coaches O.C. Frank Reich, QB coach Billy Moosegravy, tight end coach Alfredo Roberts, a.k.a. Freddie Bobs, and defensive line coach Carl Dunbar. They have 82 seasons of combined NFL coaching experience, compared to 44 years of the assistants in those roles last year. For several reasons, the most important hire was Reich, yes, who will have control of the offense. True. With Glenn taking a more active role in the defense, he needed someone who could trust on the other side of the ball. That's one of the factors that drew him to Reich, who has 6 seasons of head coaching experience, 4 seasons as an OC. When Frank stands up in front of the room, there's not a lot of F-bombs coming out of him, said former NFL quarterback Boom Boom Esiason, who played and roomed with Reich in Maryland and became his lifelong friend. It's more straight to you. He's speaking to your heart. He's speaking to you as a human being, and he's also trying to get the best out of you as a player. In Reich and Glenn, the Jets will have 2 seasoned play callers. Mike McDonald showed the concept can work. He called the defense for the Seahawks, but he was an outlier. He was the first head coach in history to call defensive plays for a Super Bowl champion. Yeah, but, Bill Belichick was he may not have been calling the plays, but I'm sure he's quite influential in the plays that were called all those years. He was in the soupy. The Seahawks and Bills were the only 2 teams in the postseason with this setup. At least Glenn can install and run his scheme, which wasn't the case last season. He let Wilkes do his own thing, and it failed miserably as he keeps rubbing it in. As the Jets rank near the bottom, we get it, Rich. Offensively, Reich's system will contain the elements needed for success in the Northeast, where the weather turns cold late in the season, according to Esiason. A physical team that relies on running and play-action passing. As a former NFL quarterback, Reich certainly isn't averse to throwing the ball. In his first season as the Indianapolis coach, so he goes through some of this, Luck retired, then he went to this person, Jonathan Taylor. All right. Glenn evidently sees Reich as a cutting-edge coach, noting he's unique in his ability to see the game for what it is right now and adapt when appropriate. A telling comment. That Glenn hired a coordinator with a passing background suggests a willingness to diversify the offense. Remember, he picked Reich over Greg Roman, one of the league's foremost running game gurus. Roman was one of the 3 finalists for the Job. Reich inherits a major question. Who's the starting quarterback? And modest expectations. True. Glenn completed the staff with blah, blah, blah. He brought in Wink Martindale. That's not important. People in Glenn's camp. Okay, let's get to this about Glenn's camp. About a week earlier, Glenn had attended organizational meetings at owner Woody Johnson's home in Palm Beach, Florida, because everything good happens in Florida. The timing of those meetings, coupled with the seemingly abrupt end to Martindale's candidacy, fueled speculation that Johnson, who has a reputation for meddling, had instructed Glenn to run the defense. People in Glenn's camp say that isn't true, that it was his decision to take control of the defense, part of a detailed offseason plan presented to Johnson. Well, that's interesting. On January 28th, Glenn hired the relatively unknown Duker. Put up your Dukes. Seemingly an 11th hour candidate, he wasn't among the initial 8 to interview. Duker, most recently with the Dolphins, has no play calling experience, but is familiar with Glenn's system. Coached in it for 3 seasons in Detroit, so there should be nothing lost in translation. A day before Duker's hiring, Glenn parted ways with Engstrand, one of the coaches he took with him from Detroit. He was open to keeping Engstrand in a reduced role, but the result was a clean break. In the end, Glenn wound up replacing one of his key assistants on offense, defense too. It was a prolonged process, clunky at times. Glenn's coaching future could hinge on whether he got it right. Here's a look at the new coaching staff. Offense, Frank Reich. Coordinator, Seth Ryan, Rex Ryan's son. Passing game coordinator, Billy Moosegravy. Quarterbacks, Steve Hayden. Offensive line, Sean Jefferson. Wide receivers. Sean Jefferson must be a good coach. Everybody just keeps him in place. They never fire him, which is really rare in this world. Nick McKissick, Luke. Running backs, and Freddie Bobbs, the tight ends. Offensive assistants, Thomas Merkel, Brian Natkin, Al Netter, Matthew Sargent, Junior Taylor. And a lot of those are coming from Stanford, and those are the smarty pants kids coming in, and I really like that. And then on defense, you got Brian Dukes of Hazzard, Duker, coordinator. Chris Harris, passing game coordinator, defensive back. Carl Dunbar, one of the best D-line coaches in the league. Ben Bowling, love him. I showed a video on my X feed, one of the many reasons you should follow me on X, of Ben Bowling teaching tackling. He's very good. Ryan Slowick, Bobby Slowick's brother, the safeties. Defensive assistants, Ronald Booker, Cameron Davis, Nathaniel Willingham, he's a holdover, and Colin Bauer. Special teams stayed the same. Chris Obanjo and Kevin O'Day. Excellent job. Those guys should get raises. So there you go. So Rub It In Rich is writing a column. It must have really pained him to write this one. Probably wrote it from the undisclosed location of his vacation spot. But Country Club Connor, very quiet. Rub It In Rich, this was his first tweet in 2 days. So, very, very quiet. Very, very quiet. Joe says, Mary Kay has always been top notch. Yeah. And I'm glad I'm shouting her out. So that way people don't say, Frankie, you're just so negative. All you do is talk about the negative people. No, I point out the good ones. Holly Rowe is excellent. Mary Kay Cabot, excellent. Chimney knows his target market. Broken Jet fans whose love has turned to hate. Yeah, Joe, I was hoping for that, but I did tell you in those videos it was pure speculation, right? There was no reporting on that. Nobody was reporting that Chad would even been reached out to. And I did tell you I had a personal contact, and I asked that contact to get in touch with Chad to see if there's any interest. I don't know if that happened or not, but that's all it was. It's a good idea. But maybe they reached out to him and he was like, "Nah, I'm not interested." I would like to stay within the high school ranks. All right. What are you going to do? People want to do what they want to do. Still a good idea. But I like who we wound up with because it's more likely, not a slam dunk, but more likely that we could land Derek Carr, because that's the other thing you could say to Derek Carr. As if we didn't have 100 arguments to make to him already. Then we say, well, you like Frank Reich? Oh, yeah, I love Frank Reich's offenses. Yeah. Well, you like Billy Moose Gravy? Yeah, I love Moose Gravy. Coached me for 2 years. I was a Pro Bowler both of those years. I was killing it. Okay, we got both of those guys. They're here. They're right here. Like, what more does Derek Carr really need? I mean, yeah, it'd be nice if you could just put yourself onto a team that's going to the Super Bowl. But, all the teams that have a chance at the Super Bowl, the legitimate ones, they don't need a quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, the reason that they're good is because they have the quarterback. Like, that's one of the main reasons that they're in a position to win the Super Bowl. So to go ahead and say, well, I would like to go to a team that has a chance at the Super Bowl. Yeah, everybody would, but those teams already have their quarterback. All the teams at the back end of the draft, they all have quarterbacks. They're not looking for a new one. Very rare situation, like what happened with the Seahawks last year. Very rare situation. You got a fully loaded team ready to go, and all they want to do is upgrade the quarterback. And at that time, don't forget, they had Geno Smith. They could have just stuck with that, so they had a quarterback. But what they decided to do was upgrade. In their mind, Darnold was an upgrade over Smith. So they did that, but that's pretty rare. I mean, so I don't know how many arguments. There's a lot of arguments to make why Derek Carr should pick us. But then again, maybe he wants to turn down $100 million. I don't know, man. It makes so much sense in my mind for him to pick us. We could totally be a playoff team next year, I swear to God. All we got to do is add him a few key free agents, retain Hall and AVT or Simpson, add a few other than him, add a few priority free agents, and then have our draft picks pan out. It's all going to be on defense. It's not that far-fetched. It may not seem like it, but the team really isn't that far off. It's really not. Now, what if we can't get Anzalone? What if the draft picks turn out to stink? Well, life is all about probabilities. There's very few certain things in life, but if you're making an argument, we got a path. Okay, not the Super Bowl this year, but look at us as a 4-year investment. If your car is 35, play till you're 39. Why not? And look at us as a 4-year investment. By year two of a 4-year investment, we could be Super Bowl contenders. We really could. It's crazy. Yeah, the coaching should be, we got Frank Reich. He's got to be better than Engstrand. Reich and Moose Gravy. You put them with a functional veteran quarterback, they're going to know how to move the fucking ball. We couldn't throw the ball last year. We still had a top 10 running game. If you put a functional quarterback with an excellent play caller and a good quarterback coach, excuse me, and we have the same offensive line and the same tight ends. They're the ones who open the holes, and hopefully we get Breece Hall back here. And hopefully we get AVT or at least Simpson. And then you have the same tight ends, the same offensive line, the same running backs that had a top 10 running game, and we had no quarterback where the defense didn't have to honor us throwing the friggin' ball. I mean, come on. Plus the defense should be better just from coaching. Steve Wilkes making... I keep going back to the same thing because it's so unbelievable. Making Quinnen Williams change his stance. Are you out of your fucking mind? Wilkes, you made Quinnen Williams change anything? Are you crazy? Oh my goodness. To his credit, Williams did it. Now, he was asking for a trade all year, but still he kept that quiet, so I give him credit. Imagine how frustrating it must be to be Quinnen Williams, one of the best defensive tackles in football, And this guy comes in and says, change your stance up. We're going to change it up. What? Excuse me? I'm Quinnen fucking Williams. You don't change shit, bitch. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? You know the name Quinnen? There's not a lot of Quinnens out there. Maybe you're a little confused, coach. I'm Quinnen Williams. Excuse me. I'm not changing a goddamn thing. Fuck you. You know, he came in and changed Quinnen Williams. What? Excuse me? And then of course he goes to the Cowboys, and guess who's there? Aaron Whitecotton, his old coach here, line coach. And Whitecotton puts him back to the way he was with the Jets before, and he's pressuring the quarterback left, right, and center. Yeah. What the hell? And now Whitecotton's back with Saleh in Tennessee. By the way, I hope you saw that Robert Saleh hired his cousin Al. He literally hired his cousin Al to be their linebacker coach. Oh, yeah. Nepotism Bob over there. Let's hire cousin Al. He's good, right? Well, he's my cousin. He's got to be good. What? Yeah, I literally did that. Oh, yeah. That's a good philosophy. Just hire your cousin. I'm sure he was the best. He was definitely the most qualified candidate, right? Oh, yeah. Good one. Joe Mike. If the Jets get Carr, then the number 2 pick should be Carnell Tate. He could go that way. I wouldn't hate it, actually. What I would say, I mean, you could do that. I wouldn't hate it. I love taters. But what I would say instead is we get Reese, and then at 16, you get one of the big 3 or Denzel Boston. There's not that big of a difference between them, where if you wound up with Denzel Boston at 16, people don't realize this now. By the time the draft comes, watch, Joe Mike, they will. Boston is phenomenal, and he's almost to the level of the big 3. So it's not a big jump between those. So why not get the defensive stud and the wide receiver, right? But if they decided that Tate is just so much better than everybody else, and they think he's a 9, he's a super stud, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Then at 16, you get the best defensive player there available. But that's the way I would. So I wouldn't hate that approach. But the way I would approach it is just get Reese and then get whoever's the best wide receiver available. You're going to get a really, really good one at 16 anyway. So why not get the generational freak Reese at 2, then get a really good quarterback at 16? Really good wide receiver at 16. And then, that's another argument with Cards. Like, even if you might say, well, what if you're not able to get Romeo Dobbs or Wan'Dale? You know, your wide receiver room's still a little light there. Yeah, okay. At pick 16 is going to be a wide receiver. So you're going to have Garrett Wilson, first round pick, Denzel Boston or Carnell Tate, one of these guys, a first round pick, A.D. Mitchell, a second round pick, John Mechie, a second round pick. I mean, what more do you want? So, and then by the way, look at Ike Williams' tape. Look at Isaiah Williams. He's not a big. He didn't get picked high. I think he was a UDFA if I remember. But watch the tape last year. He's a good little gadget player. You know, he run an end around, a jet sweep. You know, he caught everything we threw to him, and plus all the stuff he did on special teams. He's basically Rashid Shaheed. You tell Carr, look, you like Rashid Shaheed was doing all the things that Isaiah Williams did for us last year. Rashid Shaheed was doing for the Saints in 24. He was returning all the punts and all the kicks and running, with these great run backs. And then he was on offense catching bombs, catching passes, doing end arounds, and all this. The only difference was we didn't have a quarterback who could throw bombs great. In the first 5 games, I can't even tell you how many bombs Carr's throwing to Shaheed. Boom, right in his hands. Ping. Touchdown. See you later. 70-yard bomb. Bing. I mean, easy peasy. We got the players who can do that. We just haven't had the quarterback who can fucking throw it right on their hands. We got quarterbacks throw it behind them, throw it to 6 yards short. You can't do that. You got to put it right in their hands. Telling you, man, Carr could have so much fun with us. And the redemption story, oh my God. The Jets are dead and buried. Everybody laughing at us, laughing stock. 15 years of futility, and you're the guy who brings us back from the dead? Excuse me? You're going to Lazarus the Jets? What? Excuse me? I mean, we'll build 20 fucking statues for Derek Carr. I think it's a compelling case. I don't know. I hear. Am I crazy? That's a compelling case to go to. I don't know, man. But then again, these people might be super influenced by the media. That's part of the problem, and why I try to dunk on them whenever possible and whenever they're doing something either factually incorrect or against journalistic ethics, because we got to push back on these people somewhat, at least, because these articles are out there and it just may have poisoned people's minds. It may have, like, no matter what you say, it's possible that no matter what you say to Derek Carr, his mind's been poisoned by the media. And it'd be like, that's nice, but I don't really want to go to that environment. It seems kind of nutty. You know, he could be dead set against it. Same thing with Cousins, Same thing with Willis. Same thing with any of these guys. I think Mariota would be willing to give it a go, though, as long as you give him a starting job. So that's why I say he's our fallback option. Mariota at 32 years old, probably isn't going to have too many chances to be a starter anymore. So he'd probably just take that, plus the money that would come with it. So as a fallback. But these people who have other options, like, I don't think Carr and Cousins have that many other options, to be honest, good options. But Carr could remain retired. Cousins, maybe he really wants to be with KOC again, even if he has to compete with JJ. I wouldn't think so, but that's me thinking. I don't know. Maybe he's willing to do that. Who knows? Be back in the loving confines of KOC's offense and having Justin Jefferson to throw to if he beats out JJ. So they might go, and and I'm poisoned. The media poisoned my mind against the Jets. That seems crazy. I'm not going over there, and that could be the case. All right, and same thing with Willis. All right, Miami situation isn't great, but at least it's not the Jets. Could be the thinking there, and maybe he goes, well, if they give me a 3-year deal, yeah, the first year is going to be a little rough, but then by year 2 they'll be able to. The cap situation gets better. Have more players. So there are scenarios that you could talk yourself into any of these places. Arizona, they got Maserati Marv, they got Trey McBride, they got Michael Wilson, they got some things. They don't got much else, but maybe you want to go play in the desert. I don't know, but that's why I say as a fallback, Mariota could probably be the most realistic because he would probably just take it. And then in that case, you need to have a second story, to sell to the fans and to sell to Woody also. You can't just be Mariota and he's going to take us to the promised land. That's, it's ridiculous. It's like Mariota, maybe he could do it, but don't worry, everyone, because we're going to also have Ty Simpson, and then you got to talk yourself into Ty Simpson being the guy we saw the first half of last year and not the second half. And at least that gives you some optimism and hope going into the season. So more than just Mariota and Sam Howell or something like that. Adonai Mitchell, yeah. Exactly. I mean, imagine Adonai Mitchell with Derek Carr, who's a gunslinger, accurate passer. I mean, A.D. Mitchell, he could put up huge numbers. And then you go, all right, well, they're going to double team him, Frankie. Yeah, okay, then leave Garrett Wilson open. Try that on for size. Well, then they're going to double team them both. All right, great. Then we'll just throw to Mason Taylor up the seam. Fuck you. Well, then they're going to double team everybody. Well, you can't double team everybody. And then we also have, in 11 personnel, we have a third wide receiver, whether that's Romeo Doubs or Wan'Dale Robinson or Carnell Tate or Denzel Boston, somebody who get in the draft. He's going to be wide open. So that's the whole point. And by the way, what about a running game? By the way, we have Breece. Hopefully we sign Breece Hall. All else fails, we throw to Breece Hall out of the backfield. Are you any good at doing that? Yeah. Oh. So I just don't understand why, unless they're just so poisoned by the media that they can't get these athletic, articles out of their mind, like a guy like Carr or Cousins wouldn't want to come here, or Willis for that matter. But then again, that's why we have to keep pushing back on the media, because they poison the well, and then we are not able to a large degree, not the whole thing, because we do a lot of stupid stuff our own selves, but the media is the reason people may not want to come here. And then the media goes, well, the team stinks. It's like, yeah, we weren't able to attract talent because of the lies and the half-truths and the bullshit that you put out there. I mean, Zach Rosenblather still to this day defends his 30 disgruntled employee article and the thing he just ran about John Gruden, which was factually incorrect, as reported by everybody, including John Gruden and the Jets, all refuted this report the way he reported it. Not that a phone call happened, but that we were offering him a job, which we were not, which is what he reported. Everybody, and he still stands by that. Like, there's no corrections. There's no, I'm sorry. There's no, I got this wrong. There's never any accountability for any media person ever. Ever. It's the weirdest thing. It's the only job where you get shit wrong. Everybody involved says this is wrong. It's incorrect. And you don't pay a price ever. The man never pays a price. All these people, they get things wrong all the time. And all you get is Frankie pointing out how wrong you are, and Frankie has 279 fucking followers on X. Nobody gives a shit what I say, and I'm like the only one who will point this out. And then you have the Badlands people putting you on the payroll. You know, Joe Trasheroso will pay for you. He'll give you money. Joe Trasheroso takes your money that you give to him to be a subscriber on Patreon or wherever you subscribe to him on, I don't know, on YouTube. I guess he probably has a membership. Takes your hard-earned money and gives it to Zach Rosenblather. How cool is that? He takes your money that you give to him and gives it to a guy who has made it infinitely harder for us to improve the team. That's what that man's doing. And nobody asks him why. Can somebody ask Joe Trasheroso why he does this shit? Like, what's up with this? The man who's principally responsible for these horrible articles that were disproven. People said, no, I didn't say that. No, that's not what happened. And makes the Jets look like a bigger shit show than it is. It's a shit show, to be sure. But the media makes it into even more bigger shit show that it's actually not as bad as they say it is. And that keeps us from getting talent. And then they wonder why we can't compete. You need players to compete. You only have so many draft picks. You know, at some point, you got to get some quality free agents in. You got to get some quality coaches in, and these media people make it harder. And then a guy like Joe Trasheroso goes ahead and rewards them. Like, how is that allowed? Like, everybody who's a supporter of Badlands should go to Joe, let's use his real name, Joe Caporoso, and say, look, we like everything about Badlands if you do, but we would like you to get rid of Rosenblather because of these reasons, legitimate reasons. Can you just cut him off the payroll? He's not providing any value. We don't like the content he provides. He's just making life harder for the Jets. We would like our money not to go to reward people who makes life harder for the Jets. Is that unreasonable? I don't think that's unreasonable. I mean, what the hell? But the people of Badlands won't do that. I don't know why. I don't know why we're not together. With the situation, Glenn is in, he put together a pretty good staff. He's a lame duck coach. Surprised anyone would join staff? Yeah, because you're too negative, Joe. First of all, why is he a lame duck coach? Because the media told you so, Joe? Fuck that. We're winning 9 games next year if we get a quarterback. How many times do I have to tell you this is not as bad a situation as it seems? It comes down to the quarterback. We need the quarterback. It has to be the quarterback. Quarterback. And hopefully we can just sell one of these top guys on the situation as I've just described. Carr did meet with the Jets. Yeah, he met with us, but then he signed with the Saints, if you remember that. And this was before that article, I think. But, he didn't have too many options at that time either. And he met with us, but he decided not to go with us, if you remember. Go Jets, we can turn this around. Yeah, we're not that far off. Yeah. Phil Simms laid out what Frank Reich looks in a quarterback. That's not true. This is Joe. You got to really. I would encourage you to increase your filter of your media sources. Is this what you're saying here? Is this any different than anybody in offense? Everybody wants a tall, mobile, accurate, smart quarterback. Wow, this is incredible analysis by Phil Simms. This is the same thing everybody wants. Be tall, have some mobility, have a good arm, be able to make all the throws, get rid of the ball quickly and on time and accurately. That's the job of a quarterback. So all he did was quote you the job description of an NFL quarterback. This is what Frank Reich wants. Yeah, that's what everybody wants. You know who we should target? We should target people who can get the ball where it needs to go on time and in an accurate fashion. How about that? But I would encourage you to filter out your media more. You need to do more media filtering. Phil Simms, Chris Simms, the entire Simms family is a bunch of boneheads. Here's something I posted on my X account. Retweet from Chris Simms. Number 1 wide receiver in the draft 2025, Travis Hunter. NFL ready baller, he said. Well, turns out Jacksonville Jaguars are turning him into a full-time cornerback. Sorry, Phil Simms and Chris Simms, you're wrong. Number 2, Kyle Wilson, day 1 difference maker. Number 3, Tet McMillan. Number 4, Jalen Knoll. Number 5, Trey Harris. You know who the best one out of these 5 is? It's actually Tet McMillan. And everybody knew that except Chris Simms because Chris Simms is not that bright. Let's be honest. And these are the type of things I'm going to keep bringing up the Chris Simms rankings that he did through the years. Remember, he had Zach Wilson number 1 over Trevor Lawrence and over everybody else. Big supporter of Kellen Mond. Where the fuck is Kellen Mond today? CFL or some shit? So these people, Phil Simms, Chris Simms, you got to filter out the bullshit. And one of the values of following me on X, I will point out the bullshit. Like, look at these rankings. This is clearly stupid. They're moving Travis Hunter, they announced this week, to full-time cornerback. And he might play a few snaps as a wide receiver. But according to Chris Simms, he's the NFL-ready baller, number 1 wide receiver in his class. Wrong. These people are consistently wrong, and they never get held accountable. Why does Chris Simms have a job on NBC? He's wrong all the time. Zach Wilson's number 1 over Trevor fucking Lawrence. Kellen Mond's going to be a baller. Kellen Mond. What? Excuse me? This guy had De'Ami Brown over Jalen Waddle. What? Excuse me? He knows nothing. Nada. He's basically retarded. And we allow these retards to stay on television for some reason. This is why you need Frankie. You follow me on X, you will... I guarantee you this. If you follow me on X, your football IQ will go up a lot because I expose the frauds and I also highlight the people who are doing really good work, who really do know what they're talking about, who really do have systems of evaluation which turn out over the long term to be correct. And by the way, if you're a Frankie member, an Inner Circle member, which you can click the join button down below, you get all sorts of draft evaluations evaluation systems and draft guides for free. The PFF draft guide, you're going to get it for free when it comes out. The Dane Brugler one from The Athletic, you're going to get that for free if you're an Inner Circle member. For free. So it pays for itself right there. $2 a month, you pay me, and you get all these draft guides that you'd have to pay all this money for. You get it for free. And I get you other ones as well that are not as well known, but which turn out over time to be correct. For example, I don't know if we want to get into this. I don't know if we want to get into this. Let's start a controversy. Uh, yeah, that's the whole point. They made a terrible trade, and that might come back to bite them. We'll see. Now, maybe Trevor Lawrence really is that guy, and he can raise up the level of the franchise. But one of the systems that the Inner Circle members are going to have is going to put, it looks like, it's not finalized yet, but is looking like is going to have QB1 for this year's draft as Ty Simpson over Fernando Mendoza, who also will be listed as good, but he'll be QB2. Ty Simpson as QB1, with the asterisk of can he stay healthy? The idea being the things he showed in the first half of the year are what he really is. This is the theory for this. And everything after the Oklahoma game where he injured his back can't be looked at the same because he had a back injury. He also had several other injuries. He had an elbow injury. He had a bunch of injuries that he played through. Therefore, that accounts, along with the Alabama team not being up to its normal standards, for the decline in play in the second half of the season. And if you were to get the guy who was playing in the first half of the season where he was playing against high-level competition and playing at a high level, remember, he was a Heisman candidate for the first half of the year. And if you get that guy, well, he's even better than Mendoza, a better prospect, put it that way. And so there's going to be at least one draft guide that tells you all the ins and outs of that, although I gave you the high-level points, that if you're an Inner Circle member, you're going to get that for free. Now, you may disagree with that. You may say, what? That's crazy. But that's at least one informed person. And when you see the methodology of how the person goes through their scouting, you'll say, wow, that makes sense. Now, you could disagree with the end result evaluation, but it could be that the Jets actually get the best quarterback in this draft. Now, that being the case, does that mean he's going to be awesome? Well, we just don't know. And we also don't know if he can stay healthy. That's a lot of injuries that he had for only 1 year of playing, and that's the other problem. He only played the 1 year. You don't have any other tape to go on. So you got 15 games worth. So that's the other problem with Ty Simpson. It's a very difficult evaluation. You really want way more starts under your belt so that you can scout. And then half of them, he played injured. And so it's like, man, this is really tough. So I don't know that you got to filter out the bad people and you got to filter in the good people. Filtering is essential in this world of media. We have so much media. Filtering is essential, I would say. One good filter is old Frankie. The LA Rams are set to hire Robert Wright as a defensive assistant. Wright is a former DC at Syracuse and Buffalo, blah, blah, blah. There is very little news going on. Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy. Interesting. College stuff. Chancery Court. All right, nothing there. All right, well, very little news going on. Let's check the chat. Carr was the fallback. Yeah. Smash the like. Yeah, please do smash the like button. We appreciate that. That doesn't cost you anything. Or subscribe to the channel. Chris Bradigan, he's a member. That's why I don't watch those idiots or so-called experts. I only watch a certain few whose opinions I agree with and trust. Well, yeah, you got to build up the trust. The way to do it, if you want to know how to filter, Bradigan's got the right idea here. Just keep track of their predictions and see how many come true going forward. Right? If somebody's now, and not everybody's going to be 100%, of course, but if they're just consistently way, way off, like Mel Kiper's consistently way, way off, Todd McShay is consistently way, way off, Chris Sims is consistently way, way off, throw them the fuck out. And the people who are consistently close, right or close to it, you stick with them. And you see how they do over time, and you consistently just fine-tune and fine-tune and fine-tune until it's just a select few, because how many do you really need? That's the other thing, and this was the guru theory back in the day that I had, where on certain topics you only need one or two gurus, whether it's personal fitness. There's a lot of gurus about personal fitness. Well, find the one that works for you and stick with that person, and don't go off kilter and find some other guy or gal. Now they're saying eat this and do this, and just stick with your one person. Personal finance. Find your personal finance guy that you like, guy or gal, and just stick with their advice and just listen to them and just stick with their system or whatever they got going on. And it's the same thing with football people. There's a lot of opinions out there. There's way too much. Way too many opinions and way too many people getting way too much wrong over time for you to continue listening to them, including the Sims people, including Kuiper and McShithead. They all need to go. They're not good. Joel Klatt, for example. Joel Klatt is a guy who's a color guy for college. He calls the games, and he's the color guy in the booth there, and he does a decent job at that. Do you really need Joel Klatt's mock drafts? No. He calls the games. He knows the college teams, and on a Saturday, he's pretty good to listen to during the games. He knows what he's talking about pretty much. But that doesn't mean he knows the NFL. He has no idea what the NFL is. You think he knows about the Jets? And that's the other thing. We're Jet fans. So all these people making mock drafts, you can bet your bottom dollar 99% of them have no idea what's going on with the Jets roster. They have no idea who Isaiah Thomas is. None. And what his role is going to be next year. Even if they know who he is, they don't know what he's our starting cornerback for next year. They don't know who Jason Brownlee is and what he's going to be up to for us next year. They don't know how bad Malachi Moore was and that he should be a backup instead of a starter next year. So they don't know all these things. And therefore, you can't trust them when they do a mock draft or anything else, especially related to the Jets. No bueno. Especially if they lead with production. Because production, like this is Mel Kiper's big word. What about his production on the field? Well, production's important, but you have to understand the context within production is produced or not produced. If they don't ask a guy to rush the passer very much, he's not going to have a lot of sacks, for example. If they never throw a tight end the ball, how's he supposed to have any catches? They never threw him the ball. But you got to look at the tape and say, was he open at all? Or was he always covered? What's going on? So that's important. Rick Furdy. Well, the problem, Rick Furdy, Davis Mills is not a free agent. So we've already laid out the quarterback scenarios. Go back to the beginning of the program and rewind. And so Davis Mills is not a free agent, so you can't have him. Sorry. And I don't think the Texans are trading him because teams realize their backup quarterbacks are very important. Guys get injured. C.J. Stroud has gotten injured plenty of times, concussions and all, and they need Davis Mills. They're in their window now. So Davis Mills falls into the same category as Mac Jones and Basically, Jacoby Brissett's a little different, but same category as Mac Jones, for example. Those teams are in their playoff window now, so they're going for it. They're going for the Super Bowl, and so they need backup quarterbacks because their starting quarterbacks are injury prone, or any quarterback really can get injured. And therefore, they need the backup quarterback to win as many games as possible because they're going for the Super Bowl. They're trying for it. So you're not getting people's players that are on other rosters. And a guy like Jacoby Brissett's a little different. Obviously, the Cardinals are not in their Super Bowl window, but he looks like he might be their starting quarterback next year. A lot of people are saying that. So you're not going to trade for their starting quarterback. He's the guy they want to start to make a bridge for next year. So we've already been through all this. Joe B. I don't know who Joe B is. Oh, Joe Blewett. Yeah, Joe Blewett is a guy to respect, for example. So Joe Blewett, that's not where I'm getting that from, but Joe Blewett is a guy whose opinion you should respect also. Blewett, if you want another guy. Blewett's opinions, while I don't always agree with him 100%, they're respectable, and he shows you why on tape. Especially if he does a tape analysis, he's one of the best out there. So Joe Blewett is a guy that, of course, you should respect, and doesn't mean you have to agree with him all the time, of course, but he's one of the best film breaker downers out there. So there's no doubt about that. Joe Mike, when are you doing a mock draft? Well, we already did a couple, Joe. I'm not sure what the point of keep doing them is. I already told you what's going to happen. I mean, what's the point of doing it, Joe? I already told you what's going to happen. I think we're going to make a push for Carr or Cousins. If we get one of those, then if we get one of those and a wide receiver in free agency, then the first 4 picks are our defense. You know how it's going to go. It's going to be Reese or Bain or Bailey at 2. Then at 16, it's probably going to be Caden McDonald. At 33, it's going to be Dylan Thieneman. And at 44, it's going to be probably a defensive tackle or an edge, whichever. And then there you go. I mean, there's your mock draft, Joe. I mean, what do you want? But if we sign Willis or Mariota, who are the next tier down, then we're probably taking Ty Simpson at 2. And then we're taking all defense after that. So the best player available at 16, defensive-wise, maybe Sonny Styles fall to us. That'd be nice. Or maybe Caleb Downs falls to us. That'd be nice. And then maybe we pick up the safety and another edge, or probably edge at 33 at that point. I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out what's going to happen, Joe. We need to stack this defense with as much blue chip talent as we can. The problem was, as I told you in the summertime a million times, we don't have enough good players. And what happened? We didn't play good. And then we traded Sauce and Quinnen in the middle of the year. So what did you expect? Now it's about replenishing the talent. But I think probably a good time to do it would be after the free agency period. We got to know who's on our team. I mean, this is the same thing I told Dom C. Dom C was trying to get me to contribute to an article for Jets X Factor, and I told him, this doesn't even make sense, Dom. He wanted me to contribute to some article he's writing for Jets X Factor where he wanted a bunch of content creators to say who they would pound the table for. And I was like, it doesn't make sense. We're not even through free agency. We don't even know what quarterback we have. How am I going to know who to pound the table for if I don't know the general parameters of our roster? He didn't like that answer. He didn't like that answer. But it's sort of the same principle. It's like the free agency period. That's why I'm giving you a couple of scenarios for how that could go. But job one is the QB. Once we figure out which one of those options it is, that's going to inform our other options. For example, if we land Malik Willis, if that's the way it goes, well, Romeo Doubs might be more attracted to us. He knows Malik. He has some familiarity and chemistry with him already. So that might increase our chance of signing him. It might not. I don't know. Depends on his market. But, if we strike out on the wide receivers, we can't sign anybody we want for wide receiver. All right. Other teams wanted them, give them a lot of money. All right. We struck you out. Well, then we're going to pick a wide receiver in the first round, maybe even as high as 2. Maybe we love Taters and we take Taters at 2. Probably not, I would say, because there's enough really good ones that you could get what you want at 16 and then take your defensive freak at 2. But, it depends what we're able to come up with in free agency, especially the quarterback. So I told Dom C I'm not comfortable contributing to that article. So, by the way, look for that article on Jets X Factor at some point. I'm sold. I remember when Chris Mortensen. Yeah, I remember those days. But that's when that was before the internet, man. I mean, information was hard to come by. The internet has enabled all of these new models. Boss Girl says, do another mock after free agency because should know more of where. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'll probably do. Joe Mike says, love Dylan Thieneman. Yeah, I do too. I hope we can get him. A lot of people are mocking him in the first round, which would be bad. But so we'll get one of those safeties: Thieneman, McNeil Warren, Halsey from LSU. We'll get one of them. We need them very badly. Bluid is a big fan of Simpson. Well, yeah. I mean, if you watch the first half of the year, you'd have to be an idiot not to be a big fan of Simpson. But if you watch him in the second half of the year, you'd have to be an idiot to be not a big fan of Simpson. It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It was like, what the hell is this? And if you attribute it to the injury, then you got to rely on your medical people to say, hey, does this guy have, some sort of, is he going to be an injury-prone guy his whole career? And if they say no, it was just a bunch of freak accidents and whatever, then you go, okay, rely on the first half of the year. It's still just a handful of games, though. So it's like, man, there's a lot of risk there. But at the same time, sometimes you got to take a risk. Kind of sucks, but yeah, you got that right, Sacheti. And he's on the payroll of Badlands. So if you're a Badlands person, you're paying this man. Meadowland Swamp Thing, he's a member of the group as well. Here we go. And I think people should join the inner circle. The Meadowland Swamp Thing, he's a member. He gets tons of quality information from from being an inner circle member. $2 a month. It is really not a lot. But hey, to each his own. Maybe you just want to keep paying Badlands to have Zach Rosenblatt keep shitting on the Jets. Meadowland Swamp Thing. Any chance the Raiders pursue Willis? Probably not. I mean, seems dead set that they're picking Mendoza. From all the reporting and from what anybody can tell, everybody's just mocking Mendoza to the Raiders. So if you're gonna do now, there's no ties for Willis to go there. In other words, Kubiak has ties with Carr, for example. So if they were going to sign a free agent, maybe they would sign Carr. But Carr, of course, is 35 years old, whereas Willis is 27. So do they want to really take that chance? If they're going to take a chance, why not take a college kid? I mean, I guess they could do an analysis and say, if they were both coming out this year, would we prefer Willis or this version of Willis? Willis 4 years in the league. This version of Willis or Mendoza? And they do an analysis and they might say, well, we prefer Willis. So I guess they could. But then I would assume they're trading the first pick, and then we would have to trade with them, I would guess. So that would be, there would be a lot there. There'd be tons of intrigue. There would be trades. I would assume then they would trade out of the first pick. And then we would be trying to trade with them. The Cardinals would try to trade with them. The Dolphins probably also. But of course, we have the most capital. If we really want to move up one spot and get Mendoza, then we have the most to give the Raiders. I don't know. I really wouldn't want to. Then you'd really have to decide how much are you willing to trade just to move up one spot, considering the Cardinals are probably going to want to move up there. So, and the Dolphins. So the Raiders would have multiple people trying to trade up probably. So then you'd be trying to figure out the right price for that. And so that would be, weeks and weeks of intrigue if that happened. But I guess they could do it. I mean, Clint Kubiak's the new head coach. We don't know what he prefers. He just had success with Sam Darnold. He's been kind of all over the place, moving around like a lot of the coaches do. So does he really want to have a rookie as his quarterback as he makes his first head coaching foray? Or would he prefer a veteran, although not a veteran with a lot of starting experience? So anything could happen, but all the reporting is they're just going to take Mendoza. Yeah, join the inner circle. I agree with Swamp Thing. So Ricky Ferdy, we've already been through this a million times. Derek Carr said he has two conditions for coming back. One, he's got to be healthy, which he is. Number two, he wants to play for a contender. So I would make the argument that with Derek Carr, we are a contender. I went through all this earlier. I would advise rewinding the tape and seeing my whole argument. I don't want to go through all of that again. It'll bore everybody. But I think with Derek Carr, the bottom line, I think with Derek Carr on our team, plus all the blue chip talent we're going to add over the next 2 years, we are a contending team. That's the argument I would make. Venom's here. Yeah, Venom, there's no point in my opinion, there's no point in commenting under a video. I don't care about the algorithm. So what I would say is just save up your comments for the live shows and we'll talk about it then. Commenting is really just a waste of everybody's time if you think about it. I don't care about the algo, and it's a waste of time. Might as well just bring up the questions and comments here live on the air, and we'll talk about it here. It's much easier to have a conversation live in voice form rather than trying to type out paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of information. So that's why that's the way that is. Yeah, I mean, they might. I mean, we don't know. They just hired their guy, Kubiak. I mean, they might have their internal meetings, and after they do their film study and meetings and their evaluations of everything, self-scouting, and they might come to that conclusion, like, let's get a vet and get capital rather than just Mendoza. On the other hand, they may say, let's just do the simple thing, get our franchise quarterback in here in Mendoza and do that. I tried to make the case many times that it actually is in their best interest to trade out, sign. They could sign Cousins, for example. They could sign Carr. Carr has a connection to Kubiak. They could sign Carr or Cousins or Willis, and any of the top three really, and then get a figure. They might think, well, if we got Carr, he's 35. Let's get the same argument that the Jets have for Carr. Let's get the car on the tracks. Let's get moving in the right direction, and then we'll trade out of the first pick, get a bunch of stuff, and then we will use that bunch of stuff to improve the team significantly. And then you would have to sell it to Carr that we could contend with you here, Derek, and with all this other stuff that we're going to add to the team, and with better coaching. So, and Kubiak has already been an offensive coordinator of Derek Carr in the past, somewhere along the way. So you would think that. And then next year, with some of these picks, because you figure we're going to probably have to trade one of our 27 first rounders, even to go up one spot. So then they go, all right, we got 2 next year after this trade, plus a bunch of other stuff. Okay, well, if Carr's not working out, we can get a quarterback next year, et cetera, et cetera. So we don't know, but that's why I say the combine is going to be very important, and that's when you'll start hearing rumors, because these next 2 weeks are going to be very boring and dull and quiet, because the teams are doing internal evaluations and coming up with their plans for the offseason. Then once they come up with the plans, then they go to the combine, and then everybody starts talking. Everybody starts drinking, and everybody starts talking, especially the reporters. They drink like fish. So everybody's running their mouths, and that's when rumors start coming out, and that's when the teams start talking to other teams, laying groundworks for trades and this and that. So that's when you'll start hearing about it, and then we got to wait a couple of weeks after that, and then we'll know, because free agency will start. We'll see who signs where, who signs what trades are made, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the key point. But we actually don't know. But all the reporting so far has just been, well, they'll just take Mendoza. Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Well, yeah, I agree. You'd have to sell them. You'd have to sell them on how are we gonna build up this line? The Jets at least have a decent one, and it could be really good if we get AVT and or Linderbaum. The Jets at least have, decent. It's decent, and 2 young players on the ascent. Actually, 3 young players that are going to ascend: Membu, Fashanu, and Tip. So you add AVT to the mix or Linderbaum to the mix. Now you have a really good line. Plus all the weapons they have. What weapons does Oakland have? Las Vegas. They got Bowers. They got a tight end who had a knee injury last year. They got Bowers. They got Ashton Genty. They got no offensive line. They got no wide receivers. I mean, they got a lot of work to do. You gonna be Derek Carr and get killed? Well, same thing with Mendoza. You gonna put a rookie in there and have him get killed? How's that good for a rookie? So I don't know. That's not a great situation, in my opinion. Well, look at the media, boss girl. You don't have Zach Rosenblather types writing articles like he wrote, about us with 30 disgruntled employees for The Athletic, a totally flawed article. You don't have people writing those type of articles against other teams, right? And this is why I keep bringing it up. I mean, nobody pushes back against Zach Rosenblather except me. Nobody goes to Joe Caporoso and demands that he's taken off the payroll of Badlands. Nobody will do that. Watch. Not one person will do that. That's why. We do bad stuff. Other teams do bad stuff. We do, some weird shit, and so do the other teams, but we're the team that's thought to be the most dysfunctional out of all of them, when we're really not. I mean, for one example, one thing that was in that article was about the Madden ratings. Well, then Eric DeCosta came out of the Baltimore Ravens and said, yeah, we use Madden ratings as part of our matrix, yeah. Was that in Rosenblather's article? No, he left that shit out. Did he go to other teams and ask them if that's a common practice? No. Why? Because he doesn't want to be a real journalist. He wants to be a fucking shithead. And nobody holds him accountable, ever. Nobody ever holds him accountable and says, why did you do that? That's inaccurate. That's a breach of journalistic ethics. Get him off the Badlands payroll. Nobody ever does it. Nobody will ever do it. Except me. I'll make the appeal right here. Joe Caporoso, take this man off the fucking payroll. He's an enemy of the Jets, and you're paying the enemy, Joe. Fucking shithead. It's wrong. It's just wrong. That's why. Because we have these shitty riders. Why do you think I have identified these people to go after? You think it's fun going after these people? Knowing what power they have? The Athletic is funded by Carlos Slim. Do you people understand? Carlos Slim owns 43% of the New York Times. The New York Times owns The Athletic. Do you understand what Carlos Slim could do to me? I could disappear tomorrow and no one would hear from me and no one would know what happened. No one would ever find my body. There would be no investigation. It would just be like, that was weird. That guy disappeared. Do you understand? I'm not even kidding. Like, these people are very powerful people. And that's one of the reasons that no one ever holds them accountable for anything. Because the people are just too afraid of speaking truth to power, knowing you could get stuffed in a suitcase and thrown into the bottom of the river and nobody ever finds you. And everybody's like, well, whatever happened to that Frankie guy? I don't know. So, that's why we live in a media environment that's no bueno. And it's very conglomerated. Why do you think I put together that little video called The Media Masters that nobody fucking watches? I explain it all. It's all explained. All explained. Nobody listens. Well, one day maybe y'all will figure it out. Beat the beat. Slim was probably on that island. Yeah. I mean, nobody's looking at that. How about looking through the Epstein emails for Carlos Slim, although he's probably smart enough to know the golden rule, which is always in cash, never in writing. A lot of these fools put their stuff in writing. If you're going to be doing some nasty shit, don't put it in writing. Some of these people are so stupid. But anyways, that's where we are, people. So it's going to be quiet. We're going to have to scratch out some shows and some news of something. It's going to be a little rough, to be honest with you. Yeah, well, it doesn't help that we can't win. Of course, winning solves a lot of it. All right, but thank you so much for joining me on this Sunday as we rant and rave about the media and also the Jets and other things. But as I've said multiple times, I think it's worth your while, $2 a month. Join the Inner Circle down below, join button. Subscribe to the channel if you want to do that. That's for free. And otherwise, just give a thumbs up because that always helps. But as always, thank you for your time and efforts. And I'll